Welcome back to another Battlefront update. Seeing that most of the game modes in Battlefront 2 are getting some love from DICE after the Geonosis update with either new maps or patches, I figured it was time to talk about the ugly duckling of the Battlefront 2 game mode family that isn't nearly receiving that much attention and honestly hasn't for quite some time. We're of course going to be talking about Starfighter Assault. And we'll also touch up on the single player campaign in this video, and how the future for both these modes looks like going into 2019. Now for some much needed context. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was a project undertaken by 3 studios, all owned by EA. These studios were DICE, Criterion, and Motive. Motive worked exclusively on the single player campaign story mode. Criterion only did the Starfighter Assault mode, while DICE took care of everything else. The reason why Motive and Criterion were even brought to the project in the first place was as EA realized that DICE would not only be getting overworked doing the game by itself, especially considering they were already working on the early stages of Battlefield 5, but also due to the fact that DICE clearly struggled in the areas of storytelling and starfighter piloting, as seen in how poorly received those modes were in Battlefront 2015. So of course, come November 2017, Battlefront 2 is about to release. Motive and Criterion are done with their responsibilities of the game and are soon after moved by EA to work on different projects, while DICE completely take over Battlefront 2 and hold down the fort for the remainder of the project's lifecycle. At this time, Motive had already created the second part DLC to the story mode, as will Criterion with the Dakar Starfighter Assault map that would go along with the Last Jedi season, but both were of course held back for a release and ordered to come out later on. And this was done so EA had some content ready to go out in order to showcase its, at the time, brand new live service idea of Battlefront 2. With Battlefront 2 released, Motive went on to work on a brand new game with its very own IP that will be story driven and focused. Meanwhile, Criterion continued to work with DICE, but instead of Star Wars, they were put in charge of developing Firestorm, which is the Battle Royale mode for Battlefield 5. Since the November 2017 release of Battlefront 2, fans have not seen any new content made for either Starfighter Assault or campaign mode that wasn't already pre-made months before the game's release. As for when we'll see anything of these modes in 2019, we already have a good idea on where we stand there. For the campaign, it's over and done with. We aren't getting a part 3 of Zayversio, as Motive are already working on a brand new game from the ground up and don't have the time. Nor would EA even see any financial incentive to even provide a part 3 for campaign mode. As for Starfighter Assault, it's hard to say. Currently, Starfighter Assault is the weakest of all game modes in Battlefront 2 in terms of player count. So in EA and DICE's eyes, there isn't any demand there to spend the money and man hours to create new content for it. If we do get new content for Starfighter Assault, it's likely to be coming out in winter 2019. As Criterion are currently busy working on Firestorm, which is set for a spring 2019 release. And this is why they weren't even brought in to create a Kessel Run themed Starfighter map for the solo season, as they just couldn't afford the manpower. Because unlike DICE, Criterion is a far smaller dev studio, so it isn't realistic for them to be working on 2 projects at the same time by splitting up its dev team. Not to mention that Criterion also makes a pretty big deal even on their website that unlike most other game developers, they see crunch time as, in their words, flat out stupid and not something that they partake in. To give you a better idea, Criterion only has 96 employees, and not all of them are obviously game developers, while DICE internationally has about 716 employees, at least according to the LinkedIn statistics. And even they struggled when they had to work on both Battlefront 2 and Battlefield 5 at the same time. Since Episode 9 content for Battlefront 2 is a given, there's a chance that Criterion could come back to the project in order to develop an Episode 9 themed Starfighter Assault map. But that's really about it if we're looking at this realistically, as EA will most likely move them to another project soon after, as it wouldn't make any financial sense to keep funding an entire dev studio just to create DLC content for an unpopular game mode in Battlefront 2. Thus, while the future of Starfighter Assault in Battlefront 2 isn't great by any means, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely dead or written off like campaign mode is. DICE have repeatedly stated that there won't be any more new campaign content coming in the future, but have never said the same about Starfighter Assault. We did technically get Hero Starfighters mode and Starfighter Arcade added to the game in 2018, and these of course weren't done by Criterion but DICE instead, and were only a low-effort modification of Criterion Starfighter Assault that contained no new content, but rather were plagued of glitches and cut off of existing content if anything. Also, if Criterion will be forced to come back to create Episode 9 content, then we better hope at least that Episode 9 will even contain any space battles for that to happen in the first place. But that'll do it for this Battlefront update. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel to not only support it, but keep up with Star Wars news, gaming, and canon lore released every week. And consider following me on Twitter and Facebook to never miss out on the latest Star Wars related content. Thanks for watching and may the Force be with you.